The story of Samoa begins deep in the mists of time, on the vast blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Long before European ships dared to cross the horizon, a brave and skillful people known as the Lapita were navigating these waters. They were master seafarers, guided by the stars, the currents, and the flight of birds. Around 3,000 years ago, around 1000 BCE, they journeyed from Southeast Asia, carrying their culture, plants and animals in magnificent double-hulled canoes. Eventually they reached a group of volcanic islands, lush and fertile, which they would call home. This archipelago, blessed with rich soil and surrounded by turquoise lagoons, became the heartland of a new civilization. These were the first Samoans, the ancestors of a proud and enduring people. From these central islands, the early Samoans established a powerful cultural and political hub. For centuries, Samoa was not just a place to live, it was a cradle for Polynesian culture, a starting point for further exploration into the great unknown of the Pacific. It is believed that from Samoa, voyagers set out on incredible journeys, discovering and settling distant island groups like Tahiti, the Marquesas, and even Hawaii and New Zealand. These epic voyages are recorded in oral traditions, in the songs and stories passed down through countless generations. They speak of legendary navigators and chiefs who sailed east against the prevailing winds, demonstrating an almost supernatural understanding of the ocean and its secrets. Samoa was the homeland, the Hawaii of legend for many. Life in ancient Samoa was, deeply connected to the land and the sea. The people developed sophisticated agricultural systems, cultivating taro, yams, breadfruit and bananas in carefully tended gardens. They were also expert fishermen using nets, spears, and hooks, crafted from shell and bone to harvest the ocean's bounty. Their society was organized into villages, each one a self-sufficient community built around family and cooperation. The early Samoans were also incredible builders. They constructed large, impressive structures, including star mounds, or tia su, which were raised platforms possibly used for religious ceremonies or pigeon snaring, a sport of chiefs. These remnants stand today as silent monuments to the ingenuity and spiritual life of these first islanders. The legacy of this ancient period is foundational to understanding Samoa today. It established the core values of community, respect for nature, and a deep spiritual connection to the world. The language, the customs, and the very identity of the Samoan people were forged during these formative centuries. The stories of the great gods like Tagaloa, who pulled the islands from the sea, were not just myths. They were a way of explaining their existence and their place in the universe. This era of settlement and expansion cemented Samoa's role as a central pillar of Polynesian civilization, a source from which culture flowed across the vastest ocean on Earth, creating a legacy of navigation and settlement that remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. At the very heart of Samoan life is a powerful idea called Fa'a Samoa, which means the Samoan way. This isn't just a bunch of rules, it's a deep and beautiful way of life that guides everything in society. It's about showing respect, working together, and helping others. Fa'a Samoa sets the rules for how people interact, how families live, how politics work, and even how people practice their religion. It makes sure everyone gets along and things stay in order. It tells you how to treat older people, how to welcome guests, and how to help your village. This old system has been the main part of Samoan identity for hundreds of years, making them strong and able to handle changes and tough times. It's like an invisible string that connects all Samoans. A very important part of Fa'a Samoa is the Matai system. Matai are the leaders of families, like chiefs who have power and responsibility in their communities. These titles aren't just passed down from parents to children, they are given to people, men or women, who have shown they are wise, good leaders and truly want to help their family. The Matai are like guardians of the family's land and honor. They lead village meetings, called fono, where important decisions are made by everyone agreeing and talking things out. They help people solve problems, plan community projects, and make sure the old ways and values of Fa'a Samoa are kept alive. The Matai system is the political and social backbone of Samoa, a special kind of government from their own people that has lasted for many, many years. The basic building block of Samoan society is the aiga, or the big family. An aiga is much bigger than a small family like you might see in Western countries. It includes parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, all connected by blood, marriage, or adoption. Each aiga is led by its matai. The aiga is where a person gets their identity, support, and place in society. Members of the Aiga live and work together, sharing what they have and helping each other out. They work together in farming, fishing, and raising children. When there's a happy event, like a wedding, or a sad time, like a funeral, the whole Aiga comes together to help, showing how important it is for everyone to be united, rather than just thinking about themselves. These three main parts, Fa'a Samoa, the Matai system, and the Aiga, are all connected. Fa'a Samoa gives the main ideas. The Matai provide the leadership to make these ideas happen, and the Aiga is the family unit where these ideas are lived out every single day. This structure creates a society where everyone has a role and a purpose. It makes people feel like they belong and that they have duties to each other. Even though modern life has brought new ideas and challenges, this old way of life is still very strong. It's why Samoa is stable and why its people are so strong, showing how a way of life that values community above all else can last. For thousands of years, the Samoan Islands existed in relative isolation, a world unto themselves. This changed dramatically in the 18th century, with the arrival of European explorers. The first documented contact was with the Dutch navigator Jacob Roggeveen in 1722, followed by French explorers like Louis-Antoine de Bougainville. These initial encounters were often brief and sometimes tense, marked by curiosity and misunderstanding on both sides. The Europeans were amazed by the island's beauty and the physical stature of the Samoan people, while Samoans were intrigued by the strange ships, clothing, and metal tools of the visitors. These early visits were like pebbles dropped into a still pond, creating ripples that would soon grow into powerful waves of change for Samoan society. The most profound and lasting impact of European contact came not from explorers or traders, but from Christian missionaries. In 1830, the Reverend John Williams of the London Missionary Society arrived in Samoa. He found a society that was receptive to new ideas, and his timing was fortunate, as he arrived during a period of political change. Samoans were drawn to the Christian message of peace and a single, all-powerful God. The missionaries introduced a written form of the Samoan language, translating the Bible and establishing schools across the islands. This led to a rapid increase in literacy and opened up a new world of knowledge for the people. Within a few decades, Christianity became deeply embedded in Samoan life. The conversion to Christianity had a transformative effect on Fa'a Samoa. While it challenged some ancient beliefs and practices, it did not entirely replace the traditional way of life. Instead, a unique synthesis occurred. Samoans skillfully blended Christian teachings with their own cultural values. The church became a new center of village life, standing alongside the traditional whānau, or village council. Pastors gained a respected status similar to that of Matai. The Christian concept of loving one's neighbor resonated with the Samoan value of tautua, or service to the family and community. This blending of faith and culture is famously encapsulated in the national motto, Fa'avai ile atua Samoa, which means Samoa is founded on God. However, the arrival of Europeans also brought less welcome consequences. Along with missionaries came traders and sailors, who introduced new goods like firearms and alcohol, which destabilized traditional power balances and fueled conflicts between different districts. They also brought devastating new diseases, such as measles and whooping cough, to which the islanders had no immunity. These epidemics caused a tragic loss of life and had a severe impact on the population. The growing presence of foreigners, with their competing commercial and political interests, began to draw Samoa into a wider global arena, setting the stage for a period of intense rivalry and turmoil that would threaten the island's sovereignty. The latter half of the 19th century was a turbulent time for Samoa. The island's strategic location in the Central Pacific, along with its valuable copra, dried coconut meat, trade, attracted the keen interest of three major world powers, Germany, Great Britain, and the United States. Each nation sought to gain commercial and political dominance in the archipelago. They established trading posts, acquired land, and began to interfere directly in Samoan politics. This foreign meddling exploited and intensified existing rivalries between different Samoan chiefly families and districts, pushing the islands into a series of damaging civil wars. The Samoan people were caught in the middle of a geopolitical chess match played by distant empires. These conflicts, often called the Samoan Civil Wars, were fueled by the foreign powers who supplied weapons and support to competing factions. Each nation backed a different candidate for the title of Tafa Ifa, or King of Samoa, hoping their chosen leader would grant them exclusive privileges. This period saw warships from Germany, Britain, and the United States anchored in Apia's harbor, a constant and menacing reminder of the foreign influence that was tearing the nation apart. At one point, in 1889, a naval standoff between the three powers was narrowly averted not by diplomacy, but by a powerful cyclone that destroyed or grounded most of the warships in the harbor, a moment remembered as a divine intervention by many Samoans. Despite the temporary reprieve from the storm, the struggle for control continued. The foreign powers attempted to create a joint government with a Samoan king, but these efforts were clumsy and ultimately failed because they ignored the complexities of Fa'a Samoa and the Matai system. The constant instability was detrimental to the Samoan people and to the commercial interests of the colonial powers. Frustrated by the ongoing conflicts and their inability to establish a stable puppet government, the three nations decided to resolve the Samoan question once and for all. They chose to do so without any meaningful consultation with the Samoan people whose fate they were deciding. The final act of this colonial drama came in 1899 with the Tripartite Convention. In this agreement, Germany, Great Britain, and the United States formally partitioned the Samoan archipelago. Great Britain relinquished its claims in Samoa in exchange for other territories in the Pacific. The United States was given control of the smaller eastern islands, which are today known as American Samoa. The larger western islands, including Upolu and Savaii, were handed over to the German Empire. With the stroke of a pen in a distant European capital, the Samoan islands were divided, and a line was drawn on a map that separated families and severed ancient connections. This arbitrary division marked the end of Samoa's unified sovereignty and the beginning of a new era under direct colonial rule. With the partition of 1899, the Western Islands became a colony of the German Empire. The German administration was efficient, but, it was often harsh. Their primary goal was to develop the islands economically for the benefit of the German state. They expanded the large-scale coconut, cocoa, and rubber plantations, often on land that had been acquired under questionable circumstances during the civil wars. To run these plantations, they brought in laborers from China and Melanesia. The German governor Wilhelm Solf attempted to impose a system of direct rule that undermined the authority of the Matai and centralized power in the colonial administration. While they built roads, schools, and hospitals, their policies were designed to control, not empower, the Samoan people. German rule came to an abrupt end with the outbreak of World War I in 1914. At the request of Great Britain, a military force from New Zealand sailed to Samoa and took control of the islands without a single shot being fired. The German administrators surrendered peacefully, and Samoa was placed under New Zealand military occupation. Many Samoans initially hoped that the new administration would be more respectful of their customs and authority. However, the New Zealand military administrators often lacked experience and understanding of Fa'a Samoa. Their rule was often clumsy and authoritarian, creating new sources of friction and resentment among the Samoan population who had traded one colonial master for another. The most tragic event of the New Zealand administration occurred in 1918. In November of that year, the steamship SS Talon arrived in Apia from Auckland. Against quarantine regulations, the ship was allowed to dock even though it had passengers on board who were sick with a deadly strain of influenza. The Spanish flu pandemic was raging across the world, and its introduction to Samoa, a population with no prior exposure or immunity, was, honestly, catastrophic. The disease swept through the islands with terrifying speed. Entire families were wiped out, and some villages lost all of their adult inhabitants. Within a matter of weeks, an estimated 8,500 people died, which was over 20% of the entire population, one of the highest death rates of any country in the world. This devastating pandemic left a deep and lasting scar on the Samoan psyche. The immense loss of life was compounded by the widespread belief that the New Zealand administration was directly responsible for the tragedy through its gross negligence. The failure to quarantine the SS Talon and the subsequent inadequate response to the unfolding disaster shattered any trust that might have existed between the Samoans and their new rulers. This event, more than any other, galvanized Samoan opposition to foreign rule. The grief and anger felt by the people would become the powerful emotional fuel for a new movement dedicated to reclaiming Samoan autonomy and dignity, the Mau. The widespread anger following the influenza pandemic coalesced into a powerful and unified nonviolent resistance movement known as the Mao. The word Mao means opinion or testimony, and the movement's slogan was Samoa Mo Samoa, which translates to Samoa for Samoans. It was a nationalist movement dedicated to achieving self-determination and independence from New Zealand's administration. The Mao was not a new creation. Similar movements had existed during the German era. However, under the leadership of Olaf Frederick Nelson, a wealthy merchant of mixed Samoan and European heritage, and Tupua Tamasese Lealofi III, a paramount chief, the movement became highly organized and gained massive popular support across the islands. The Mao employed a widespread campaign of civil disobedience and passive resistance. They sought to make the islands ungovernable for the New Zealand administration. Mao supporters refused to pay taxes, boycotted imported goods, and withdrew their children from government schools. They established their own parallel government, with its own council, police force, and women's committees, effectively running a state within a state. The vast majority of the Samoan population aligned with the Mao, leaving the New Zealand officials isolated and powerless. The colonial administration responded with increasing frustration, arresting Mao leaders and attempting to suppress the movement, but these actions only strengthened the people's resolve. The conflict reached its tragic climax on Saturday, the 28th of December, 1929. On that day, the Mao organized a peaceful parade in the capital, Apia, to welcome home leaders who had been exiled by the New Zealand authorities. The demonstration was intended to be a silent, orderly protest. However, the colonial police attempted to arrest one of the participants. A scuffle broke out, and the nervous police fired their rifles into the unarmed crowd. Among those killed was the High Chief and Mao leader, Tupua Tamasese Lealofi III. As he lay dying, his final words were a plea to his people to keep the struggle peaceful. "My blood has been spilt for Samoa. I am proud to give it. Do not dream of avenging it, as it was spilt in peace. If I die, peace must be maintained at any price." This day became known as Black Saturday, a day of national mourning and a turning point in the struggle for independence. The killing of an unarmed high chief during a peaceful protest horrified the Samoan people and garnered international attention and criticism of New Zealand's actions. While the New Zealand administration cracked down even harder in the immediate aftermath, the spirit of the Mao could not be broken. The sacrifice of Tupua Tamasese Lealofi III turned him into a martyr for the cause of freedom. The movement was forced underground, but its ideals lived on, and the memory of Black Saturday served as a constant reminder of the price of liberty. The peaceful resistance had laid the moral groundwork for Samoa's eventual journey to independence. The efforts of the Mao movement, combined with a changing global attitude towards colonialism after World War II, slowly paved the way for Samoa's freedom. The United Nations was established, and New Zealand's administration of Samoa was changed from a mandate to a UN trusteeship, with the explicit goal of preparing the islands for self-government. Over the next decade and a half, New Zealand began a gradual process of transferring power to Samoan leaders. A series of constitutional conventions were held, bringing together Samoan representatives to design a new system of government for their future nation. This was a crucial period of learning and preparation, ensuring a stable and orderly transition to sovereignty. A key challenge was to create a modern political system that also honored and incorporated the traditions of Fa'a Samoa. The framers of the Constitution skillfully wove together Western-style parliamentary democracy with the indigenous Matai system. They created a unique form of government where the right to vote and the right to stand for parliament were, for many years, restricted to those holding Matai titles. The head of state was initially to be held jointly by two of the highest-ranking paramount chiefs, Tupua Tamasese Mea'ol and Malietoa Tanumafili II, for life. This innovative blend ensured that traditional authority structures remained at the heart of the new nation's political life, a system that provided stability and cultural continuity. On the 1st of January 1962, Western Samoa, as it was then known, became the first Polynesian nation to regain its independence in the 20th century. It was a moment of immense pride and celebration. After more than 60 years of colonial rule, the Samoan people were once again masters of their own destiny. The new nation joined the community of world nations, becoming a member of the Commonwealth and later the United Nations. Fiame Mataafa Faumuina Mulinuru II, another key figure in the independence movement, became the country's first prime minister. The transition was peaceful and orderly, a testament to the careful planning, and the deep-seated desire of the Samoan people for a stable and self-reliant future. In the decades following independence, Samoa has continued to evolve as a stable democracy. The political system has undergone further changes, including the introduction of universal suffrage for all citizens over the age of 21 in 1990, allowing everyone to vote, though candidacy for most parliamentary seats remains restricted to Matai. In 1997, the country officially changed its name from Western Samoa to Samoa, asserting its identity as the historical heartland of the Samoan archipelago. Through all these changes, the nation has maintained its commitment to a system that balances democratic principles with the enduring cultural authority of Fa'a Samoa, creating a unique and resilient political identity in the Pacific. In the modern era, Samoa has focused on economic development and improving the quality of life for its citizens. The economy has traditionally been based on agriculture, fishing, and foreign aid. However, in recent decades, tourism has emerged as a major industry, with visitors drawn to Samoa's stunning natural beauty, pristine beaches, and vibrant culture. Remittances, which are funds sent home by Samoans living and working abroad in countries like New Zealand, Australia, and the United States, also form a crucial part of the national economy. These funds provide vital support for families and contribute significantly to local development, demonstrating the enduring strength of the Aiga, or extended family, even across vast distances. Despite its progress, Samoa's journey has been marked by significant challenges, particularly its vulnerability to natural disasters. Lying in the path of tropical cyclones, the islands have faced numerous destructive storms. However, one of the most devastating events in recent memory was the earthquake and subsequent tsunami on the 29th of September 2009. A massive undersea earthquake triggered a series of powerful waves that crashed into the southern coasts of the main islands, Upolu and Savaii. The tsunami destroyed entire villages, washed away tourist resorts, and tragically claimed the lives of 143 people. The disaster was a profound shock to the nation, a painful reminder of the power of nature. The response to the 2009 tsunami showcased the incredible resilience of the Samoan people. In the face of immense loss and devastation, communities rallied together. The principles of Fa'a Samoa, cooperation, service, and family support, were put into practice as people helped one another to grieve, clean up, and rebuild. International aid poured in, but the core of the recovery was driven by local strength and solidarity. The disaster also spurred major efforts to improve early warning systems and coastal management plans to better protect communities from future events. The rebuilding process was long and difficult, but it demonstrated the nation's capacity to endure and recover from profound tragedy. Today, Samoa faces perhaps its greatest long-term challenge, the existential threat of climate change. As a low-lying island nation, Samoa is on the front lines of rising sea levels, which threaten to inundate coastal areas, contaminate freshwater supplies, and erode precious land. The increasing frequency and intensity of cyclones, along with coral bleaching caused by warming oceans, also pose a severe threat to the environment and the economy. Samoa has become a vocal advocate on the global stage, calling for urgent international action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The nation is actively working on adaptation strategies, such as protecting mangrove forests and relocating critical infrastructure, as it fights for its very survival in a changing world. Despite centuries of external pressures, from missionaries and colonial rulers to the forces of modern globalization, the core of Samoan culture has remained remarkably intact. The central tenets of Fa'a Samoa continue to guide daily life, providing a strong sense of identity and social cohesion. The Matai system, though adapted to a modern political context, still commands immense respect and authority within villages. The Aiga, or extended family, remains the unshakable foundation of society, a source of support, identity, and belonging for every Samoan. This cultural persistence is not an accident. It is the result of a conscious and determined effort by the Samoan people to cherish and preserve their unique heritage. This cultural strength is visible everywhere in Samoa. The Samoan language is spoken universally and is a source of great national pride. Traditional arts, such as siapo or tapa cloth making, fine mat weaving and wood carving are still practiced and passed down through generations. The pea and the malu, the traditional tattoos for men and women respectively, are powerful symbols of cultural identity and courage that have seen a major revival. Perhaps most famously, Samoan dance, or siva, and song are vibrant and integral parts of any celebration or formal occasion, telling stories of history, legend, and daily life. These cultural practices are not relics of the past. They are living, breathing expressions of what it means to be Samoan today. National pride is a powerful force in modern Samoa. It is evident in the passionate support for the national rugby team, Manu Samoa, which has become a symbol of the nation's strength and fighting spirit on the world stage. It is present in the meticulously maintained villages, with their colorful gardens and clean-swept grounds. This pride is rooted in a deep knowledge of their history, from the ancient voyagers who first settled the islands, to the chiefs who resisted colonial interference, to the Mau leaders who peacefully fought for freedom. Samoans carry with them a legacy of resilience, dignity, and an unbroken connection to their ancestral lands and traditions. Looking to the future, Samoa stands as a proud and resilient island nation. It has navigated the complex journey from ancient origins, through the trials of colonialism, to become a stable and independent democracy. The path ahead holds challenges, most notably, the urgent threat of climate change. Yet the story of Samoa is one of overcoming adversity. The enduring strength of its culture, the deep bonds of family, and the unwavering pride of its people provide a powerful foundation for the future. Samoa's journey is a testament to the idea that a nation's true wealth lies not in its size or its economy, but in the strength of its spirit and the unity of its people.